to be part of this grade level reading conference that is happening across the country this week, hosting 3 sessions. And today, one of my dear friends, colleagues, and science of reading guru, Dr. Antonio Fierro, will be joining us to explain the science of reading and what his experiences have been. Also joining us today is Mike English, who is the Executive Director of Turn the Page Kansas City. So to give you a little background, Turn the Page Kansas City was started 8 years ago as the chapter of the National Campaign for Grade Level Reading. And here on the other side of the state in St. Louis, we were quite envious of the great work happening in Kansas City. So in January, St. Louis officially started their chapter. And we even stole the name because it's such a great name. So we are Turn the Page STL here in St. Louis. And our goal is to meet in the center in our state capital and fight for more funding for the education of our youngest children. So as I said, we are part of a national grade level week conference. It's virtual. Usually, of course, it's in person. I wanted to point out that there's 3 more sessions this week, and I'm hoping Mike can put in the chat box the link to those if you'd like to join us. Today at 12:30 Eastern Time, so that is 11:30 our time, you can join a discussion about rebuilding the child care system, the role of shared services and staff family child care networks. An important conversation. And then tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time, there's going to be a session about COVID-19 and education, ensuring equity as we address COVID-19 learning loss. And this will be at 1 p.m. Central Time, sponsored by McKinsey & Company. And right after that, measuring and addressing learning loss with innovative diagnostic tools, California and South Carolina respond. I encourage everyone to join us at those 3 national sessions. But here in Missouri, we were really looking at how do we elevate learning loss recovery as an urgent priority for our state during these times. And we have had, this is actually our 4th session today. If you would like a copy of the past 3 meetings that we've had, school attendance in uncertain times, support federal child care relief, and after school in uncertain times, if you would like those recordings, just put your email in the chat box and I will make sure that you receive them. So just a few little housekeeping details before we get started to our main event. So welcome. Please say hi in the chat box. We all want to know who you are and get you involved in this discussion. The Zoom meeting will be recorded and a copy will be available along with the slide deck for you after our meeting. You are muted throughout this presentation, but feel free to ask questions in the chat box during the presentation. Mike is here. He will be my right and left-hand man, Mike English, and will be responding to anything in the chat box that you might be presenting. And then after the presentation, you can continue to ask questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask questions. We hope to have about a 45-minute discussion and then 15 minutes for questions. And most importantly, enjoy this and be inspired and learn, because this is all about our kids. So I am honored today to introduce Dr. Antonio A. Fierro, a national literacy consultant. He's the former Texas State Teacher of the Year and currently a member of the National Letters, Language Essentials for Teaching of Reading and Spelling, cohort of literacy consultants led by Dr. Louisa Moats. Dr. Fierro has contributed to several literacy curricula for English learners and has co-authored Kid Lips, a curriculum that teaches the phonetics of our language to young children. His areas of interest include early childhood education, phonology, and research that impacts English learners. Dr. Fierro is also dedicated to advancing the knowledge base and understanding of dyslexia and other reading disabilities, as his teenage son, Antonio Jr., has dyslexia. Presently, he sits on the board of the Reading League and the Southwest International Dyslexia Association. And I will unmute you, Dr. Fierro, and welcome. Welcome to our session.
Thank you, and good morning. Buenos dias to all of you. As I was preparing for this talk, and especially this morning when I got up, I thought, now if I was actually going to Missouri, how would I dress, right? So I thought, I would not show up in shorts. I would not show up in a t-shirt or just a polo shirt. No offense, Mike. But if I'm going to address a group, I better dress up. So it's been 4 months since I've had anything around my neck, and I have quickly realized that I better cut down on the food. So these are absolutely, these have to be, I'm blaming the COVID virus here for the increase in pounds. So, but it is definitely a pleasure being here, even though the neck is a little bit tight but anyway, we won't even talk about the shorts. I'm sorry, the pants. So it is a pleasure to be with all of you here. I am going to address what has happened in Mississippi, and then also address some issues. Well, not the issues. What do we know about the science of reading? So this is my email address, my new email address. I am still a member of the Letters cohort, which I am very proud to be a part of. And if you have not heard of Letters, Letters is a professional development session or sessions, and we teach the science of reading. We are led by my mentor, my teacher, Dr. Louisa Moats. And if you have not read any of her material, I would strongly advise that you just Google her, and you'll find lots and lots of publications, lots of articles that she has published. And the latest one being Teaching Reading is Rocket Science. Teaching Reading is Rocket Science, just published, just went out last month, I believe. But so I'm still a member of that cohort, but I am now a proud staff member of the Barksdale Reading Institute. So here is my new email address. I am the Chief Impact Officer for Teacher Education and Preparation. And what does that mean? Well, that means that my career has finally, I've come a full circle. I have been very fortunate, very blessed to have had a wonderful career. That it seems like every day is just play, and it's not. I mean, it's hard work, but I've just enjoyed it so much that I've been able to do everything that I really wanted to do professionally, except work with institutions of higher education. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we have to prepare our teacher candidates to be ready the minute they step out, the minute they graduate, the minute they walk into a school. They must be ready to teach our children how to read. And perhaps this is the area, the only, really seriously, the only entity that had not been touched. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Lisa. So the Barksdale Reading Institute is located in Jackson, Mississippi. So, and I'll tell you how I came across working with Barksdale. But so I will be housed out of the University of Mississippi in Oxford. So my family and I were supposed to have moved by now, but because of COVID, we are in El Paso. I live in El Paso, Texas. So I'm working virtually with with Barksdale. And so Barksdale is a philanthropic organization that was started by Jim and Sally Barksdale back in 2000, when they donated about $100 million to the state to ensure that children were had the best of leadership in public schools, and that they also had, as this theory of change here says, dedicated, creative, and literacy-minded teachers in every classroom. And that is the key here, that literacy-minded teachers in every classroom. So I want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about our journey as well. But here is our website if you want to go ahead and visit us. And we have been very involved in the whole change process throughout the state of Mississippi, and I'll tell you more about that later. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is our wonderful brain, colleagues. This is what the science of reading is all about. We have enough research now that has the field has contributed over 4 decades of research, and it's taking us this long to finally say, you know what, there are no philosophies, there are no beliefs. You know, I remember going through my own teacher prep program, and I remember one of the things that I had to do was come up with my philosophy of reading. Colleagues, there is no philosophy of reading, all right? Simply said, there is no philosophy. We know now how we learn to read. And guess what? We all basically learn the same way. We activate the same parts of the brain when we when we take in the written word. It goes in and processes in the occipital lobe, which is the back of the brain. That front of the brain, that frontal lobe, is going to store sounds. It's going to articulate, bring all those sounds together for articulation. And there's that magenta area there that says phoneme analysis, phoneme grapheme association. That's where so much of the work is being done, as the actual letter or group of letters is being transmitted to the frontal lobe, and through the angular gyrus, or that phoneme grapheme association area, we join that letter with the phoneme. We join that grapheme with the phoneme. That teal area is an area, and it actually extends really throughout from the temporal lobe to the parietal lobe, all the way up and down. That is a part of the brain that processes meaning, that processes background information. Oh my gosh. And when we have levels of automaticity, when we see the word and we process it in a matter of a millisecond, all that word is stored in that little orange area. I'm colorblind, by the way, so I'm hoping that I hit the colors more or less what they should be. So I hope that you enjoy my pink colored suit that I'm wearing today. Just kidding. So in that orange area, that is where the automaticity exists for us. All right. So yes, there are individuals like children or individuals with dyslexia that process information differently, but you're still activating the same basic areas of the brain. A child with dyslexia is going to need a lot, it's going to need more practice, it's going to have to be more intentional. It is not about letter reversals. It is actually a child with dyslexia has a breakdown in the frontal lobe. All right, so in the storage, the long-term storage of sounds. So I want to kind of dismiss that right away. Dyslexia is not about letter reversals. It's not about seeing things backwards or doing things backwards. That is a myth. We really don't know where that began or how that got started. But anyway, so this is kind of a teaser as to what we're going to be talking about a little bit later. So, you know, the science of reading is just that wonderful understanding of how our brain works and how we have to teach to all those different elements or those different components of the brain. All right. So let's go ahead and show me my next slide, Lisa. So I think some of you may have heard Dr. Carrie Wright's presentation of a couple of days ago, Dr. Wright, being the superintendent of Mississippi schools, presented this slide. I'm borrowing that from her, and this is quite unfortunate. In 2013, really Mississippi was rated at the bottom of the barrel. All right, ranked 50th in the nation for education. Fourth graders were more than a full grade behind. I mean, the state just was doing poorly. Matter of fact, this is an ongoing joke, and it's the truth. Ongoing joke, and because I traveled across the country and worked with districts and state departments from across the country, the ongoing joke was, thank goodness for Mississippi, because no matter how poorly that state did, Mississippi was going to do worse. All right, and that is so unfortunate that children's lives were at stake here. And you talk about equity issues, right? But I'm not going to go that route right now. So this was 2013, and in 2013, actually, the state also passed the Literacy-Based Promotion Act that said, you know, you've got to get it together here. You've got to do something about these rates. Let's go ahead and move forward. In 2013, we also, Barksdale also embarked in an initiative along with the State Department to start teaching in-service teachers all about the science of reading. All right, and that's where I came in to the picture, and many of my colleagues, I should say, as well. As we started teaching the science of reading, we started teaching the science of reading to in-service teachers, to principals, community leaders when they were available as well. And most importantly, I finally was able to get into universities. That we sent an invitation to the 15 universities and colleges across the state. I think there may be 17. I think 15 participated. But we sent out invitations to all universities and colleges asking professors to join us in our journey. And we did have a cohort of 25 professors who were actually, and this is not just Mississippi, this is indicative of the entire country of where we are in higher ed. But anyway, so 6 years later, all right, we had the greatest gains in the NAEP in the nation, not only in reading, but in math. If you cannot read, you cannot do anything else. All right. I mean, that's the bottom line. And it also meant, colleagues, that we trained also, not trained, I shouldn't say that, taught many, many, many early childhood teachers as well. Teachers who are working with pre-Kers. We also had private daycare owners that were also part of this initiative, because the pipeline begins at a very young age. And so we needed to ensure that teachers and providers were aware of what went on, not only in language, but not only in language acquisition, but literacy development as well. All right, so let's go ahead and let me show you a little bit, some additional information. So in the 2019 NAEP was when we just, the state blew everything out of the water, right? Now, the demographics really mirrored, of those NAEP takers, really mirrored the demographics of the state, all right? So of those children who took the NAEP in Mississippi, 79% of that sample was fell under the low income category, all right? 48% of our NAEP takers were African American students as well. All right, let's go ahead and go next one. So now, all right, Mississippi ranks 3rd in 4th grade reading for low income students and 7th for African American students. So we made some tremendous gains. I'll tell you though, colleagues, it was painful from the sense of we had to teach the science of reading, and the universities, I'm not picking on universities, but I kind of am, were not doing the job that they should have to ensure that our teachers, our teacher candidates were prepared, understood the science of reading, understood assessments, understood how to deliver assessments, and to look at curricula that was based on good research. And what do I mean by that? Curricula that had not only good phonics instruction, but good phonological awareness instruction, development of language, and also, of course, strong content area understanding and teaching of that as well. All right. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. All right. Now we have not stopped growing. All right. We have not stopped growing because our percentage of children who are still at the basic or below basic is still very high. It has diminished over the years, all right? So our Mississippi, you can see I have the Mississippi percentage versus the national percentage. And still, of our African-American children, 47% still are reading below basic. And our children under the low income category are still, about 40% of them are still reading below basic. And that is still absolutely not where we need to be. It's no consolation that we are still lower than the national average, but the national average is too high. It is way too high, and so are we. All right. So again, that means that we need teachers in the classrooms who are informed, who know what to look for, know how to diagnose, and then know how to deliver intervention. All right. That is the bottom line. We need true experts in the classrooms, beginning of the pre-K, kinder, first, second, and up to third grade. If I had, not to say that I don't need experts anywhere else, but if I had my druthers and I could wave a magic wand, I would have all my teachers from pre-K to third grade to be well-versed in the area of linguistics, not in how to work with different languages, but how to understand this language well enough to be able to understand it and then teach it based on what the needs are for our children. And that's where the equity issue comes in, that we need to understand what are the needs that the children possess that I need to address. All right. So that is key. And the only way I can do that is through a sound knowledge base. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. All right. So, and then just click one more time, Lisa. So these are the goals that Dr. Wright presented earlier this week. And I love them because it's all means all, that all students are going to be proficient in showing growth. Every student's going to graduate from high school. Every child has access to, there you go, a quality early childhood program. Why? The foundation is set in early childhood. I cannot teach literacy unless I have strong language and children are able to play with language, generalize, hypothesize, and just have it be a part of their everyday existence, right? And then, of course, every school has effective teachers and leaders. The community has to be involved, and that's what Lisa, like, for example, you all so involved in that. And of course, every school and district is going to be rated a C or higher. Of course, we need to be higher than that, but that's a good place to start. Would you go ahead and hit next, please? And this is the area, oh, I'm sorry, go back. Yeah. Let me go back to my goals. There you go, there you go, there you go. And that's what I want to talk a little bit more about today, that every school has effective teachers and leaders. Okay, let's go ahead and fast forward, all right? And hit it twice. One more. So I want to talk just very briefly about effect sizes. An effect size is a statistical concept, right, that measures the strength of the relationship between two variables. That's as far as I'm going to get, okay? So John Hattie has published lots of work looking at meta-analysis. He's done a number of meta-analysis to check to see what are the effect sizes in different areas. But in this study, he checked to see what were the effect sizes of those major contributors to learning. An effect size of about 0.5 is a medium effect size. And you know what? I will not frown on a medium effect size. Something is happening that needs to be investigated. So what are the major contributors to learning? Look at the effect size of the teacher contribution at 0.49. Really, as a statistician, that's like, whoa, that's good. So, okay. And doesn't that make sense? A teacher who is well prepared is obviously going to be able to find and identify the needs of children, and also establish curriculum, which is the next one, 0.45, establish curriculum or choose curriculum that is going to impact the literacy development of children. So, I mean, it's there. We can't fight it. We need good teachers, and we need high quality curricula to be used in the classroom. All right. So about a 0.8 is a large effect size. With a 0.8 effect size, you better be doing what the findings show. And even with the medium effect size, you've got to find you go with it. You go with it. All right. That's your statistics lesson for today. All right. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So of course, you know, I place on these slides when the Barksdale Reading Institute was founded, because their drive, or our drive now, for the last 20 years has been to have leadership that is well trained and knowledgeable at each school, plus teachers who understand now the science of reading. So, and if you could hit it one more time, Lisa. I think there you go. This is when the Literacy-Based Promotion Act was passed. And this is when Barksdale, along with the Department of Education, along with the Institutes of Higher Learning, and I'll show you the slide here shortly, partnered and said, we've got to do something. We have no choice now. It is law, all right? So from 2017 to 2019, so I'm going to fast forward from 2017 to 2019, only one state showed an increase. And guess which state that was? Mississippi, all right? 34 states showed no significant change. And then 17 actually fell back. They actually got worse, all right? So when you add that up, it's like, well, wait a minute, Antonio, that's 52, that's not 50. District of Columbia is considered its own, and so is Puerto Rico. So that's how we get up with those 52 numbers. But it was 2013 when we went in full force and started teaching in service. Oh, and then what happened, colleagues, I've got to tell you, what happened also was that once the professors started learning this information, we also went into the universities and started teaching the science of reading to pre-service teachers. So once they were getting out in the fields, like, oh, okay, I know what this is. I know what is going on. So here is my task at Barksdale. Now as the Chief Impact Officer, that's a mouthful of a title, right? Chief Impact Officer for Teacher Education and Preparation. My task is to develop syllabi that we can go ahead and take, not only at Ole Miss, at the University of Mississippi, where I'm going to be housed, but use that syllabi throughout the state, all right? And make that syllabi available to any other institution that wants to go ahead and use it, all right? And what does that mean? We're talking about 3 hours, a 3-hour class of the history and the structure of the English language, a 3-hour class on a 3-credit-hour class, I should say, on word recognition, the foundations of reading. Another class having to do with what is it? With comprehension and language comprehension. Another one of assessment, and then another one for content. All right, so we're not messing around. All right, there is no fluff. I don't want fluff. I don't want philosophies. I want to be able to teach what I know is supported by research. All right, go ahead. So let me introduce you to some very brave souls. All right, and I love them to death. They are my peeps, as I call them. All right. In 2013, when Dr. Moats, my mentor, my teacher, was asked if we would help Mississippi move forward, she asked me, she said, I know how interested you are in working with higher ed. Would you work with just professors? So I had about 25, I can't count them, some might be missing, who said, you know what, we want to learn more about the science of reading. And I tip my hat off to each and every one of them, because each and every one of them has a PhD or an EDD next to their name, which means they should be considered, they are experts in that area. They were brave and said, you know what, I don't think that I have the proper training or have enough of this. So when I saw the sign-in sheet when I first went into Mississippi, and every name had a PhD and EDD next to it, I did freeze. I mean, that is daunting. All right, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, okay. And it was such a wonderful relationship, because they said, you know what, I don't understand this, I don't understand that, let's talk about it. So this is where we partnered up. Barksdale partnered up with Letters, partnered up with the Department of Education, with the Higher Education Literacy Council, and also the Center for Excellence in Literacy Instruction. And we were off. All right, let's go ahead and fast forward, or next slide, please. All right, so what did our model look like? And I'm coming at it from the university perspective, okay? Colleagues, I mentioned Letters earlier, LETRS, Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, all right? It's not a program, it's professional development, colleagues. It's professional development that centers around the science of reading. It is deep, it is comprehensive. Many individuals say that it is like a graduate degree on steroids. Because of the depth of information. But Barksdale was also said we've got to follow a matrix. We've got to also make sure that our professors and our universities are going to be teaching the right thing. Would you go ahead and hit the next slide, please, for me, Lisa? So there you go. This is the Mississippi Matrix for teaching early literacy skills, all right? So what we needed to ensure that as teachers left the universities, or our teacher candidates left the university, that they understood the reading process and literacy instruction, planning, and assessment. And if you look a little bit closer at this matrix, we're talking about direct teaching, we're talking about explicit teaching, we're talking about using multisensory and multimodal techniques. Who would argue against that, right? I mean, there's no need, right? Know the routines of a complete lesson format. Understand research-based adaptations, and it goes on. This is not fluff. This is where the rubber meets the road. Let's not talk about philosophies. Let's not talk about beliefs. This is what we know from the research, all right, that teachers must know, because children need to know, and children need oral language, phonological awareness, a good understanding, not a good, an exceptional understanding of how this grapheme is related to this phoneme, all right? So in other words, phonics, all right? They need to know how to spell, read, they need to have writing fluency, vocabulary, reading comprehension, all right? Reading comprehension, those skills that go with it, and then of course, written comprehension as well, all right? That is part of this entire process. I've been, sometimes I have folks that say, you are such a phonicator. And I know what they mean, all right? Like, oh, you're just a lover of phonics. No, I'm not. I am not. But I believe in the whole process. Now, take a look at the next slide. Take a look at the next slide. All right, there you go. So this is also part of this matrix that helps us, that will help us develop syllabi for the university, all right? Because professors, teacher candidates need to know, you see that light blue shaded area, they need to know about phonological awareness and phonics. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Lisa. Yep. Okay, understand that outline of historical influences, all right, on English spelling. Wow, wait a minute. Why is it that phone is spelled P-H-O-N-E? Why is that? Why isn't it spelled F-O-N-E? Doesn't it make sense for it to be spelled F-O-N-E? But we spell it P-H-O-N-E. Oh, I see. It's not Anglo-Saxon. That word we borrowed from Greek, from the Greek, all right? So it's a Greek word. So anytime you have a word that uses the PH to spell the F sound, the F sound, it is Greek, all right? By the way, what about this really weird word that we call have? H-A-V-E. Wait a minute. H-A-V-E. Why is that different from C-A-V-E? Cave, but it's not have, it's have, all right? Well, you know, in the word cave, that E has two jobs. In the word cave, the E has two jobs, but in the word have, it only has one job. And once children understand that, and are taught that, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Let's go on. So in the word cave, the E makes the A long, all right? But I don't know if you knew that no word in the English language can end in the letter V. It's just a rule of English spelling, period. So in the word have, the E at the end of the word have does not have two jobs. It only has one. It keeps the word from ending in a letter V. Because in English, it is what it is. That is one of our spelling rules. Okay. I get it. Next. All right. But it's just a matter of just teaching that. All right. I'm sorry. Back up one more. Lisa, I'm sorry. I said next, but not for you. Another one. There you go. Now, that other side is the language comprehension side. All right. Please do not think that I am just a lover of phonics. Oh, I want that. But children also have to have background knowledge. Children also, in order to comprehend, you know, and we can never have enough background knowledge. We're always learning. We have to understand what words mean. We have to understand what phrases mean as well, all right? And if children are not exposed to these or taught these, then you can just imagine where the breakdown occurs. Children need to understand how sentences work. What's that job of that noun? What's that job of that adjective, that verb? And understand that in that sentence, there has to be an order of proper placement of how these words work, all right? So that's the other course that we're talking about. So when you see up there, when you see up there, word recognition times language comprehension equals RC. RC is reading comprehension. So word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension, right? And that is what we call the simple view of reading, right? We do not want you, I don't want you to think that the construct of learning to read or reading itself is easy. It is not. It's not simple. It's very difficult. But it allowed researchers back in 1986 when this equation was published, the simple view of reading, word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. That was an easier way, a simpler way for us to show in a simple way, the complexity of such a difficult construct, right? Next, now we can go next, all right. So another component that and these are all, again, all my university professors, we looked at effective pedagogy. It's very different. Adults learn differently than young children. And what I started finding out, and what we know actually, not just me, but what we know is that our teacher candidates, they bring to the table their own experiences as a student. And we have many, many young, obviously, young candidates in school who were immersed in a whole language type of approach, all right? In a balanced literacy type of approach that is too loose. It's not explicit, but rather implicit. So they have to rework their own understanding of how they learn to read, all right? Which is usually not in line with the science of reading, all right? But they learned, all right? In spite of what happened, they learned. But we do come across many students who still struggle though, all right? Next. All right. So what we did also is I provided a lot of coaching, a lot of modeling, a lot of feedback as I went to visit them. All these are my professors. All right, all these are my professors. And I love these pictures. I mean, they're not staged, but I love the fact that they were smiling, that they were pointing at the wall, that they were really understanding and getting into these lessons themselves and thinking about how am I going to deliver this material? Because what I was teaching them is the material that they had to then teach their teacher candidates, right? And I did visit. I visited their classrooms and I modeled good instruction. Then we did a lesson together and then I was able to watch them, but not for an evaluation. It was all constructive. It was all constructive feedback. Never, ever, ever did I evaluate anyone or did I ever share any results or what I saw. I just get a broad statement of the entire process, but I needed to gain their trust, and I do have their trust, and we work on this together. Next. So colleagues, this is a slide that you should take a picture of. This is, when we're talking about the science of reading, this is what we introduced and what we need to introduce. Teachers need to understand how reading works. And we know through research how reading is, how it develops, all right? So we have 4 models, conceptual models of reading. That first one, that WR times LC, that is word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension, all right? Oh, and I just saw in the chat that Lisa will make these slides available. So yes. This isn't my work. This isn't Barksdale's work. This is done based on the science of reading, based on 4 decades, colleagues, of research that for the most part, the last maybe, we probably started looking at this research really about 20 years ago and really hit it hard, probably only within the last 5, which is 5 to 10, which is so unfortunate. So we teach our professors, our teacher candidates about the simple view of reading. That is that WR times LC, word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. And realize that we don't need, we need both. That's the reason we have that multiplication sign, all right? That if I have one, but nothing of the other, none of the other, then I have 0, all right? So if I have word recognition, lots of good phonics instruction, there's my 1. But I have nothing to do with teaching background knowledge or vocabulary. That's a big goose egg. That's a 0. So 1 times 0 is what? 0. All right. Now, the next model, the 4-part processing model for word recognition, that is really the brain. That is a representation of the brain. That I store all my letters, all my spellings, everything visual back here in the occipital lobe, everything that has to do with sounds, right? The phonemes, how do I articulate those sounds? How do I put those sounds together is up front. It is through that angular gyrus, which is right back here, right back here where I transmit all that information and I make connections. Scarborough's rope model is a beautiful model that's an extension of really the simple view of reading, all right? And by the way, you know, I know this is small right here, but if you go ahead and Google that, I mean, it comes up over and over and over again. You can see that under word recognition, I have some sub-skills that come into play, all right? Sub-skills that come into play. Phonological awareness, decoding, sight recognition, not sight words, but sight recognition. I see the word and boom, I got it, all right? I see the word, boom, oh, that says model. Oh, okay. I don't have to go, oh, I've done it. I've decoded it before. I know how to decode it. Those are 2 syllables, model. There you go, all right? And the last item is Aries phases of word reading development. Aries phases of word reading development, all right? Colleagues, this is what all teachers, all principals must understand especially when you're working with very young children, all right? Because this is how we know that reading instruction takes place, all right? So next slide. Next slide, there you go. So I circle back around to the science of reading, to this reading brain. So when we talk about the science of reading, we talk about those models that we just previously saw, that we saw in the previous slide. But it's an understanding of how these models represent this reading brain and represent how we need to target each different area of the brain, because each different area of the brain has a different responsibilities, all right? So we leave nothing to chance. Everything is explicit. Children need to understand that word, understand really what story does that word have to tell? What story does that word have to tell? It's not memorization. It is not memorizing that word. It is understanding the story that that word has to tell from a phonological standpoint, all right? From a orthographic standpoint, even from a morphological standpoint, all right? What story does that word have to tell, all right? So that being said, if you could go ahead and, these are my colleagues. Matter of fact, I spent a lot of time with them. We had a symposium just last week, and in the latest, in the second edition of Letters, Louisa Modes and Carol Tolman write that the mark of a profession is that its members share common knowledge of proven best practices. Lawyers do, doctors do. Every profession shares that knowledge, all right? We don't mess around. This is the way it is. And I'm not sure why these truths struggle so much in reading instruction. It's not one camp or another. It's understanding what the science is all about, how the brain works, all right? And understanding that we have to target different parts of the brain for instruction to occur and for reading to occur. So I like this, love this last sentence, relying on every teacher to reinvent these truths through experimentation is impractical and irresponsible. There's no such thing as hypothesizing anymore. We are beyond hypothesizing. We understand the science of reading. We understand the instruction, which is structured literacy. What kind of instruction goes into teaching the science of reading? So I think for the first time ever in my almost 30 years of being in the field, we have finally reached a level of truth and understanding that there is a way. We all learn to read basically the same way. We all use the same parts of our brain to process the information, all right? There are some differences, absolutely, all right? But I'm gonna, before I sign off, anybody want to, and go ahead and place it in your chat, all right? What percentage of children, after reading instruction and intervention, if needed, all right? Good reading instruction that targets what? Phonological awareness, targets what? Phonics, targets what? Fluency, targets what? Vocabulary, targets what? Comprehension, targets what? Written comprehension, written expression, targets what? Good assessment, all right? Because with good assessment, you know where the child stands and the intervention that the child needs. At the end of first grade, what percentage of children should be reading? At the end of first grade, what percentage of children do you think should be reading based on good reading instruction and intervention when needed? And I'm talking decoding, and I'm talking, you know, a relatively good level of comprehension for a first grader, all right? They're not going to go out and read Black Stallion. My wife's a teacher too, so I'm always promoting teachers. Mind you, there are going to be children with, you know, with severe disabilities. All right. You know, your numbers are high. I love that. Your numbers are high. Your numbers are high. $95 to 96% of our first graders. It depends on the research that you read, but still 95, 96%, that's not bad. And so I had a superintendent friend of mine, a buddy of mine, who stepped into a superintendency position, and he contacted me and said, hey, you know, what should I be looking at? What kind of proficiency rate should I be looking at as far as reading? And I said, well, at the end of first grade, you should be at 95, 96%. He just about fell off his chair. I could hear him over the phone hitting the floor. And why not? Why not? If the research says that we can do that, then we should be able to. All right. So that being said, I have my email address. We are still looking for partners. Oh, maybe not on that one. Do I have? Yeah. Do I have it?
Up there.
Oh, that okay. You can use my Yahoo address too. That's fine. Yeah, you can use my Yahoo address as well. So I spend a good 2 days, about 12 hours, 12 to 14 hours of teaching. When it comes to teaching, just the science of reading, just the research, teaching those models, I spend about a good 12 to 14 hours. I can teaching those models, just because of so much of the research that's there. So I'm not. You got a very abridged version of that, but that is where it all lies.
Dr. Fierro, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. We actually only have 5 minutes left. We could listen to you all morning. There was 2 major questions in the chat box that I'm hoping that you can answer, and the people could stay on just a little bit longer. The first one was, can you give an example of what a teacher does differently in the classroom when they understand the science of reading?
Yeah.
I believe that, oh.
No, go ahead. What else was there?
No, go ahead. We'll start with that question.
Yeah. Well, so what are they going to do differently? Especially teachers of young children. We are in such a hurry to get them to read, and rightly so. So if teachers understand the importance of language and language development, there's going to be more oral discourse going on. There's going to be more descriptive conversation and more extended conversation the child is going to be delivering. The teacher also will be able to look at curricula through a very different lens and understand that, ooh, you know what? Here I'm working with first graders, second graders, and I should be also teaching phonological awareness. I need to have even a stronger level of phonemic awareness. Why am I not teaching that? So you become very cognizant of the fact that there are some holes that might exist in my curriculum, and I'm going to then be able to supplement the instruction that I need. I think more importantly is that teachers understand, oh, this this really targets word recognition. Oh, okay, I need to be doing that. Yeah, absolutely. But I can't be doing word recognition all day long. Absolutely not. Because I need to be teaching some good comprehension from the sense of establishing background knowledge, allowing children to read a material that they can decode and gain comprehension. So I think above all, that's a very good question. I think above all, it gives teachers a different lens to look at their practices from a scientific standpoint.
Wonderful. The same person said, I believe that the Literacy-Based Promotion Act, which you touched on, that happened in Mississippi, included a third grade retention component. Is it possible that one reason Mississippi improved on the NAP scores is because students were being retained in third grade?
Well, I'll tell you that I don't have enough information to answer that question, and that would have to have some statistical variation to that. But you know, when we're talking about the NAEP, we're talking about a random sample of children that is taken regardless of whether they're going to be retained or not. So I don't think that is going to that would have impacted. But I really I can't answer that. I don't have that kind of information on that. I'll look into it. I'll absolutely.
And
I doubt it.
If people have that question, email it to me, because it was discussed on Tuesday with the head of Department of Education with Mississippi, and we can pass that on. I do know that at this point, or this past year, no, I couldn't say that. The year before, only 1% of students were retained in Mississippi, but it was much more than that when it began. Yeah.
So I'll absolutely follow up on that, Lisa, because I can go right to the source. So and then get back to you with an explanation on that or a response to that.
Wonderful.
Let me just answer one. How do we ensure our local colleges are teaching this curriculum to our future elementary teachers? I'll tell you, it is going to take legislation. It is going to take a change of policy. Someone from your Department of Education or your legislators have to get on board. We had strong support from legislators across the state of Mississippi. We just spoke to Senator in Alabama just a couple of days ago that she is also introducing law to start moving in that direction. But I'll tell you that to impact colleges and universities takes almost an act of Congress. And it is a very lengthy process, and it usually takes a stronghold of a policy, a law, policy or law, say this has to happen, period. And it's some give and take. So there's some political wrangling going on there. And just, we should, if there's a possibility in Missouri, actually, Lisa, I was just talking to our CEO right before the session, and she wants to make sure that we stay in touch, because we hope that you can provide us also with connections to how do we do this, how can this be done in Missouri, and how can we get colleges and universities. And if anyone knows, if anyone is open to that, or know deans who might be open to that, have them reach out to me.
Will do. Will do. I think one of the great successes of Mississippi, and explain this better, Dr. Fierro, is that the whole state worked together. So it was the Department of Education, it was the legislators, it was the universities, it was the superintendents. Everybody kind of was on the same page, and that's the way, and that's what made the changes so dramatic. I have a last question here.
Okay.
2018, Missouri passed a dyslexia screening and support law for K-3 students that recommends in-service teacher training. Is the science of reading a fundamental part of understanding how to support students with dyslexia?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Absolutely. Dyslexia is researched. has been researched for many years. We know how to impact a child with dyslexia, but it has to be based on what we know is good research. And what is that? Those connections between that letter and that sound, strong phonics background, but also, or instruction, but also lots of language instruction. So there is lots of research. I invite whoever had that, or anybody, the International Dyslexia Association, IDA at the national level is a wonderful resource to have in your back pocket. All right, and look at the knowledge and skills that IDA recommends for standards. All right, what should these standards, state standards, look like? And they have a great standards, knowledge and skill standards that they have provided that were actually developed by my mentor and my teacher, Dr. Mokes. So if you want to see what good reading instruction looks like, boom, go there. All right. Also the NAEYC, National Association for Early Childhood, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Council. Yep. They have a new position statement that's still in draft form, but it just coincides with the science of reading. So I think for the first time, seriously, for the first time in my almost 30 years of practice, I think that just about all entities are on the same page. And it's such a relief.
I'm writing this. And I said last question, but no, it's not the last question. One more, and I know we're getting late here. Is there any research around children who have poor socio-emotional skills, and does that have any effect on reading comprehension skills?
Yeah, actually, matter of fact, there's more and more research coming out now because of what's happening across the country with this pandemic. And, you know, many of these social and emotional issues many times are related to an inability to read. So is it going to impact comprehension? Absolutely, positively. Yes, 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 yes. You know, when you have this affective filter that is up, that I am struggling, absolutely. Nothing else is going to get through that affective filter because I am so scared. I am so anxious. And what happens now, that's an excellent question. What we know now is that especially children with a reading and you know what? I keep on saying children. We have so many adults who are out there who have dyslexia and were never identified because we didn't know any better. All right. Now that we know better, we have to do better, right? But back then we didn't know any better. So if you are asked to do something day in and day out that you do not do well and that you struggle with, can you imagine the level of anxiety? Can you imagine the level of fright? So is anything else going to matter? No. So absolutely. So these social and emotional issues are usually a product of something that obviously has gone wrong. And many times it's because of reading disabilities that go unnoticed, that go undiagnosed, or that go untreated. Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, Dr. Fierro, I hope we can do this again sometime. Good luck on your move to Mississippi. They were very fortunate.
And I'm here in case you need anything.
I will.
But next time I'm not wearing a tie. Okay, I'm just telling you that much. That's it. That's it. The coat and tie. That's it. All right.
We don't wear ties in Missouri. I'm just kidding. So thank you all. And like I said, I will be sending out the slide deck and the recording to you later today or tomorrow. And if you have any questions, you can email Mike English with Turn the Page KC, or me, lisa.greening@turnthepagestl.org. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Such a wonderful time for discussion. Let me know if you need anything.
Thank you, Dr. Fierro. Bye, everyone.